Okay, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Education and Training Working Group's first tutorials. Education and Training Working Group, part of the U.S. Research Software Engineering Group. Today, we're very excited to have Marshall McDonnell to show us about using GitLab for scientific software projects. First, I'd like to remind everyone that we do have a code of conduct, and we do ask you all to follow it, so you can reference that right here. I've pasted the link in the chat. And if you're not a member of USRSE yet and you would like to become one, you can join on the USRSE webpage. And if you're asking, what is USRSE? We have Ian Cosden here, who is the chair of the USRSE Steering Committee, who can tell us all about it. So go ahead, Ian.
Great, thanks. Can I get a quick, I can see this?
Yes.
Look at, all right. Thanks, Lauren. I'm going to be brief. My name's Ian Cosden. I am currently serving as the steering committee here at USRSE. And while people sort of wander in, give everyone a chance to get here before we kick it off with Marshall, I'm just giving a real brief update about what USRSE is and how to get involved. So we're a community-driven organization, that a grassroots effort that started of roughly people falling into one of these three categories. So the folks contributing to research software. This is not just a university or academic endeavor, national labs, knowledge institutes, private industry, and more. We welcome everyone from anywhere who affiliates kind of with this idea. Maybe folks interested in research software engineering careers. So there's student channels in Slack, student opportunities, researchers looking maybe to transition over to being more research software engineer, software engineers looking to add the research part of it. And folks who maybe just identify as an ally, think this is important, who manage, sponsor, support RSEs. So our goal at USRSE is four-pronged. First, to create a community of professionals to share knowledge, connection, resources, advocating on behalf of RSEs, highlighting the increasingly important role and value to the research ecosystems that RSEs serve. Resources, providing access to information and material, not unlike this tutorial, to support individuals at various stages of their career, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So actively promoting, encouraging, and working to improve the diversity, not just within our organization, but within the community at whole. So lots of folks all over. This is not just a US based, but obviously we welcome anyone, but we are primarily US centric. We've been growing rapidly. Some of the resources that we offer, so the website, if you haven't been there, it's kind of the portal into things. We send out about every other month a newsletter with some interesting reads, opportunities. Most of what happens on Slack. When you join, you get a link to join Slack, and there's lots of discussion, different targeted discussion items. I have a Twitter. We have a job board. Oops. So it's circling the wrong thing. It should be circling job board, not events. But go over there. It's one of the most visited sites, pages on our site. We have a growing YouTube channel as well. This will be recorded and published on our YouTube channel. Lots of different events that happen over the course of a year. We have workshops, general meetings. We've career symposiums. A lot of these are on YouTube. The ones with stars are. That's our International RSE Day. Few different speaker series, a DEI speaker series, funder speaker series, and this education and training speaker series. And we do monthly community calls. So if you join, you'll see announcements about each of these. A lot of what's happening is happening within Slack and these targeted working groups. Too many to read off here, but there's lots of ways to get involved. We're actively encouraging new groups and initiatives to get started. So it's a great way to meet people, contribute back to the community, advance something that you're interested in as a group. A couple things to point out. First, we're going to have our very first conference in October in Chicago. Call for participation is open right now. So in a couple weeks, the workshops, tutorials, and BOFs are due. The papers, notebooks, and poster talks coming up over the next few months. So this is really exciting for us. Our first real RSE focused conference in the fall. Some other things, as I mentioned, there's community calls, there's speaker series coming up. I think the next funder bigger series is in a couple weeks. There'll be more of these education and training bigger series. And we're at a lot of conferences having panels, BOFs, workshops. So keep an eye out for something RSE specific there. And so that I'll just end real quickly and say it's free to join, sign up for the newsletter and Slack. Lurkers are welcome. Happy to just have you there, poke around. But if there's something you want to see, get involved and join. We're a pretty friendly bunch. So my last thing that I'll say before I hand it back to Lauren is just a reminder about the code of conduct. Essentially, be empathetic, respectful, warm, friendly, and patient. Be collaborative. Be careful in the words that we choose. That it includes chat, spoken things we do on Slack as well. So go there if you haven't, and please take a look at the code of conduct. With that, thanks. Thanks for setting this up. Let me be the first to thank Marshall for doing this, and I'll send it back over to you, Lauren.
Excellent. Thank you, Ian. Now, I just want to remind everyone, I sent a little note about this earlier today, but this is a hands-on follow-along tutorial, or at least that's what we're aiming for. We do have a few volunteer TAs that'll be there to answer questions in the chat in case you do get stuck, but just know that this is we're doing this on a best effort basis. Unfortunately, fortunately, we have a lot of people here at this tutorial, but that means we can't spend a ton of time with any one individual person or stop the tutorial. So, but I will say, since the tutorial is being recorded, you can all, if you get stuck, watch the tutorial after the fact on your own time and follow along at your own pace. We will also we've also set up a channel in the US RSE Slack for any questions after the tutorial or discussions that you want to have pertaining it. So we highly encourage everyone to use that as well as a resource. So with that, I'm going to introduce Marshall McDonald. Marshall is a research software engineer in the application engineering group in the computer science and mathematics division at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Previously, he was a postdoc at Oak Ridge in the diffraction group for neutron scattering sciences division, helping with user experiments for neutron diffraction experiments. He earned his PhD from the Department of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering at the University of Tennessee, doing computational modeling and simulation of transport and polymetric membranes. So with that, Marshall, go ahead. Very excited to see the tutorial.
Appreciate it, Lauren. Thank you very much, Ian. Thank you, Ian, also as well. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for the huge turnout. This is really great. It's encouraging. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my slides. So let me do that and start a slideshow. And I'll be going back and forth between the slides to kind of stop, and I'll try to follow along as well. So that way I can help pace and doing this, with you as I kind of go through it. So hopefully it won't go, too fast, and there's probably more material here than we can really get to. So I will make sure to kind of put a little a timer on and make sure we get to some of what I think might be more important stuff to the end. So, but with that, let's jump into it. Yeah. So first, thank you, Lauren, for the introduction. Yeah, just to kind of put all those words into a slide. Previously worked in neutron scattering, so I did do kind of the experimental side of stuff. So here is at the Spallation neutron source at Oak Ridge National Lab. Kind of looked at materials physically, but also in a past life also did computational modeling. So HPC resources like Summit here at ORNL, and now I am a research software engineer. So I love helping make quality software for science. And then the scientific software that I still work with is material science stuff, neutron scattering, data management, supercomputing, and such. So but now kind of why am I even wanting to give this talk? So why talk about GitLab? Well, Oak Ridge actually has multiple instances of GitLab running. We have stuff for like external projects, we have internal projects, and for different reasons. So I think it's a really awesome resource. And I use it kind of on a daily basis. And, maybe this might even just, for your institution, if you're interested in hosting your own for, a reason you might need. And this is kind of the login page for our own GitLab instance. So also, I think arguably, GitHub is much better known. It has much more users on it. And previously I worked just on GitHub myself. But I thought now that, that I've made my switch, I really enjoyed working on GitLab more, for certain reasons. And I thought I'd share my experience now that I use that on a daily basis. And it's also just nice to diversify your experience with different platforms, kind of as you do with programming languages or, different frameworks and, interdisciplinary science. It's nice to try out and see the features on different ones. So then now, yeah, the disclaimer of this. So first, I'm definitely not an expert on GitLab or GitHub 100%, just trying to share my knowledge. But I do, have daily work. I work with a premium version of GitLab here at ORNL. Like we pay for a couple extra features that are, kind of above the free tier. So I kind of do think that maybe biased me a little bit towards GitLab. And I created this tutorial from a previous one where I was explaining our Oak Ridge National Lab GitLab instance. So I've kind of had to update a lot of the content, features that were not available in the free tier on gitlab.com, but also new features. This is kind of a rewrite based on that one. So, this will kind of be the first time I've given this, but yeah, lots of cool features coming down the pipeline from GitLab. And then, yeah, I think I already said it. We have more material than we have time for, so I'll try to get some of it, the flow of it, and we might skip to get to some of the funner stuff at the end. But TAs are available in the chat. I might not be able to see the chat directly, but I'll try to take pauses when I can, and yeah, hopefully help keep you going along with us. In creating the materials, I do have a reference GitLab group. And this has mostly everything complete on it. Here's the link right here. And I'm hoping that the slides or the slide link is available in the chat. But feel free to use that as you need. But really, if you can, try to follow along. Ask questions and then use the TAs. And then just to kind of show it again, the USRSC Slack. Please join this channel as well. We can help you even after this 2 hours. And if you haven't joined USRSC, yeah, join. It's free. So a legend for the presentations, going through my slides, if you're going to go through these later, the red arrows, which you'll see a lot of, are kind of just to bring your attention to things, and then kind of they're numbered to say, like, to click on certain things in certain orders or input stuff in the UI. The green and white arrows are kind of like, okay, we're navigating to a different page. And then these kind of typing keyboard icons, these are for the hands-on part of the tutorial. So those will be specifically the slides where we're going to kind of stop, pause, and do something. And the grayed out ones, kind of ones where you don't have to follow along if you don't want to. That's more demonstration. But if you'd like to, feel free. And now, okay, so we've already kind of given a little bit of background on it, but let's talk about what GitLab is if you've never heard of it before. So GitLab is primarily kind of a source code management platform, version control based on the Git command line tool. And if you've never been there before, gitlab.com, you can use this link here. And it has a lot of incredible, reference documentation that I've gone through to solve different things. So if you need to, find that, gitlab.com/help. And then, that goes with your own, instance if you spin that up. And it's similar to a couple other platforms, GitHub, of course, but also others that you might not be as familiar with, but like Bitbucket, Git, Cgit. And some of these I've never used or heard of, but, have been, I've come across and heard about. So, and what does it, kind of look like? So we'll be going through this kind of in our first section, but, there's, you can log in, as a user. You can display your projects and kind of your organization. And then you have a UI where you're, hosting your source code and version control. And you can collaborate as a team. And then you have a lot of features that we'll be going through for the rest of the tutorial. But this kind of gives you a little bit of idea of the UI for this. And now, since I do think that, GitHub is the one that maybe people are more familiar with, I wanted to do a compare and contrast. Like, why would you, care about GitLab? So first, GitLab is open source. GitHub is not. So if you want to, this is the GitLab group that has a lot of their source code and such, is at gitlab.com, gitlab-org. And so, the code to actually run GitLab is completely open source, which is pretty, if you want to add a feature, you can go ahead and do that. GitLab and GitHub, the feature sets, they're pretty much almost identical. There's small variations, a small difference in terminology, but there's really everything that I've found in one, I can usually find another or some way to do it. So Some examples where they differ though is like GitLab does allow like groups inside of groups inside of groups. So you can have like a very nested type of structure, and we'll see that later. Where GitHub has like a much flatter, project repository structure for organizations. Another big one, GitLab can be self-hosted and self-managed for free if you want. You can grab containers and spin up your own GitLab instance if you want. But GitHub, the only way to do that is through GitHub Enterprise that I'm aware of, and this is a product that you have to purchase. If you're interested in those, I thought I'd pop the docs in. But the GitLab docs for self-hosting, about.gitlab.com/install, and then GitHub Enterprise if you're interested in looking at how to do that and compare those two. I thought I did find this, and this was actually on GitLab, that kind of had a little bit of the difference in terminology. And being in the GitLab, using GitLab so much now, I did kind of forget about a few of these myself, and I kind of use the terms interchangeably now, going between both. But mainly on the GitHub and the GitLab, pull request versus a merge request when you're asking to like add your feature branch or some new features into a code. It's a request to merge that feature branch into the the main branch and such. We won't be talking about gists and snippets, but those are the difference in those. The big one is a repository versus project. In GitHub you have your code repository. In GitLab they like to say project because there is a lot of all the features that we're going to go over. There's a lot more there. And then organizations versus groups. So now we are going to go kind of into our first little bit about of doing the hands-on. It's creating a GitLab account. Let's get on that platform. So if you'd like and you feel comfortable with going ahead and setting up your account, you can go ahead to gitlab.com/users. You'll see this page, but you'll see there's a couple different options. I'm going to go through some slides now to kind of maybe explain those. I might go a little fast because I'm wondering, I think maybe there, thank you, Lauren, for putting it out, to go ahead and get an account. So maybe some of you already have an account. You can sit back for a little bit, just listen. But for those that haven't, I might just go through telling you about all the different options about how you can set up your account. So, one thing is that you see there is kind of this username password, and you can register and you can do the sign in, as a brand new one, or you can sign in with all these buttons down here, what they call single sign on. So, what's the difference between those? So the username and the password, that's simply going to create a new GitLab account. They're going to use that username, you're going to have that password, and that's how you log into this platform. The buttons, if you're not familiar with single sign-on, that's how you can reuse an account from another platform, get your information or your identity, and then they'll use that as your kind of username in a sense. So you can log in once on one platform and go across others in your browser session. So you're probably very familiar with this if you use Google for Gmail in one tab and then switch over to Google Drive in another tab, and then GitLab in another tab. You keep that same login. But when you do single sign-on, realize you're going to share information with GitLab from that other platform. So if you did want to try a single sign-on one, I just myself, because I didn't know, I went through to check like what's going to get shared, or what does each page look like. So this is if you do the create a GitLab account using Google single sign-on. So you notice it kind of tells you what's information is going to be shared. So they're going to get your name, your email, from Google, language preferences, and profile pics. If you do GitHub single sign-on, you'll see this page. This is the one that I actually primarily use. I'll be going through setting up a brand new one, not doing single sign-on for the tutorial, but just in case, for long-term, if you want to use GitLab, I kind of prefer this just because I'm on both platforms. But, it says not sharing anything, or at least they just don't state what they're going to share. To create a GitLab account, you can use Twitter if you'd like, if you're on there. It's interesting, to see what all they share: tweets, profile pic, account settings, Twitter accounts that you follow. So they pull a lot more information for that one. Bitbucket, I thought that this was another interesting one because of all the single sign-on options in Bitbucket itself. So, what you can do is use these to single sign on to Bitbucket if you have an Apple account that's not on GitLab, but you could do it to Bitbucket, and then Bitbucket to single sign on to GitLab. But yeah, just so you know that those options are available. And then Salesforce if you have an account for that. Yeah, so I think I already hit on it. Which one should I choose? So just on the daily, personally, I use the GitHub single sign-on. I'm already on both platforms, and then I have to remember, less logins, just one, and then I can store that in a, less that I have to store in my like LastPass or OnePass. But what would I suggest today? If this is your first time and you just want to make an account, a one-off, you will go over how to do that. Like I would just make the username password type account we're going to go over, and you can always use the single sign-ons later if you want. And then I will go over, if you do choose the single sign-on, you're going to get this disclaimer about, pushing and pulling over HTTPS. You have to set a password or a personal access token to do that. Why is that popping up? And just so you're not, worried, it's because you need to enter a password when you do the HTTPS. But if you did single sign-on, there is no GitLab password for you. So, that's why they need, get a token or set a password or such. If you use SSH, though, you don't have to worry about that. But that's just one little caveat. So now we are going to go into, setting up our GitLab account. So if you will navigate to GitLab.com/users, and I'm going to pull up the slides in a separate over here so I can follow along. Yep. So first things first, we're going to.
Hey, Marshall, could you make your screen a little bit bigger? The browser.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Does that help right there?
That's perfect, at least for me. So anyone shout if you in the chat if it's too small for you.
Yeah, and maybe I can take a pause if there's any questions I need to in the chat right now, or if we're doing okay.
Yeah, we have a thank you in the chat.
Oh, good. Cool.
So it's very helpful to see the comparison between GitHub and GitLab, which I agree.
Oh, good. Yeah, these are the things that you normally probably would. I only looked at it in this much detail once I started going through all this, so it's kind of nice. So yes, let's jump in now, I think, to creating the account for those that haven't yet jumped into this. So we're going to go to the register now. So if we go over in another tab, we're clicking on register now. And then they're going to have some information there. You need to put your first name, last name, pick a username, an email, and a password that you would want to use, and then prove that you're not a robot. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. I bet this one's not available. Yeah, I thought so. Let me try a different one. Perfect. Awesome. Then my email that I'm going to use over here. Setting my password for GitLab, and proving that I am not a robot. Let's find the motorcycle. Okay, good. And then register. So it says almost there, and we kind of saw that it's going to say you need to now go to that email. So check the email. So my email has already arrived. If yours hasn't, maybe just give it a minute or two, check spam. But I think it's okay to say, I got this. Thank you for signing a GitLab. To get started, click on the link below. So then I'm going to confirm that account. So now we're here. I'm clicking on confirm my account. Let me refresh that. Do this. There we go. Okay. Yes, okay. And now we are caught up in the slides. So here, I did kind of experiment with this a little bit to say, what might you want to pick? But really, they're now requiring you. You used to be able to skip some of this, but they really require you to personalize your experience, and it kind of like personalizes your UI or the information that they can collect from you. So the ones that I have found that I'm using for the rest of the tutorial is I picked that I'm just going to be a software developer. If you want to pick another one, feel free, but you might be veering off a little bit. But why am I signing up? So Yeah, I just stated I wanted to kind of explore and see if I wanted to switch to GitLab, which maybe that kind of applies to a lot of us here. Just, if you've already been on GitHub or another version control system. So who will be using GitLab? Just for me. Now it pops up an extra thing down here, but if you do the My Company or Team, it's going to add some extra pages that you have to go through. So, for now, hopefully just click on, just me. And then right now we're not joining any projects. We're starting from scratch. So we're just going to start to create our own project. And then you don't have to do any email updates, and then hit continue. Let me keep in sync with the slides. Yes. So now this is going to walk you through that you need to create a default group, kind of like a GitHub organization to put that for a first project, because we're kind of going through this UI. And you can change this later if needed. You can delete these if you don't want them. So, this is just to set up a default one. And we're going to go back through how to do this all over again. So you'll get it twice through the actual UI. But for right now, you can say, just my default group and my default project. And then your project will be created at, and tells you where that project's going to be. So that's, your first, version control project. And you can even change this URL later if you want. I did not include adding the getting started README. I would kind of suggest if you're not really that familiar with Git, to also do the same. And I'll show you in here in a little bit why that is. Oh, that one is already taken. Okay. Let's try that one. Great. Okay, cool. So yeah, pick a unique name in the group. And then let's get started. So, okay, let's go. And then you don't have to, it's just they're trying to get you to add more people, but you can just cancel that. You don't have to add anybody, and you can always do this later as well. But now we have landed in our first project. It's already set up a learn GitLab, and I have not gone through this, and I didn't realize this actually even until just this week when I did it this way. So I'd like to probably take another time to go through all this. So if you want, you can come back to this. It keeps this tab for this project, and you can go through and learn more if you're interested. But for now, we're just going to kind of keep going with the material here to say, we created it. And for anybody that might have done single sign-on and already landed on a page, this is where we'll all sync up together. Is if you ever need to get to your dashboard to look at all your projects, it's the little GitLab icon up there, and it'll land you right here. So if I go up to the top, to the dashboard, and you see if you hover it over, it'll say dashboard. There you'll see all of your groups and projects, and we only have the one right now. So that is right now the first part of our hands-on. And now we're going to get maybe into the more cooler and exciting stuff. But I might pause for a second, and I'll stop sharing for a second. If there's any immediate questions that I need to answer right now.
I think we're all set. We had one question about whether to use the GitHub SSO, but I think we've answered that. The TAs have answered that. So
awesome. Yeah, thank you, TAs. Great. Then I will jump on in. I see 3 or 4 jumping on the same question. That's awesome. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to set up getting familiar with how you set up, new projects and new groups in GitLab and how you might move those around. So again, we're jumping right back into another hands-on. The objective of this little chunk is to say we're going to create some new projects in GitLab, or the idea is that you need to create projects for your different software projects. You need to maybe want to create a group to associate projects that are related if you have more than one. And then you want to be able to know how to move those group projects around. I think that's really important, so you don't feel afraid to do that. You need, if you need to restructure, feel free to restructure. So, we're going to hands-on get back to that GitLab dashboard, make a project, make a group, and then move the project. And then we'll kind of finish up in this little chunk. So this is just kind of a repeat, but if you hadn't already, click up here to the dashboard, you'll see your projects. And this is my main account that I use with you can see I have other projects here. So that's what it would look like if you had forked or some others. But what we're going to do is right here, keep missing it. We're going to go to a new project. So we already just made a project, but we're going to leave that one alone. We're going to create a new project just so we see how to do it through the UI. So you'll see, yeah, you have a couple different options. The one that we want to do is this create the blank project. We're going to start from scratch because you can import ones from other, source or other platforms like GitHub or Bitbucket, even another GitLab instance if you wanted to. You can have a template for your projects to create them from, and then you can like use a project for like just for these deployment stuff. But we're just going to do the basics, create a completely blank one that you can work with. So we need to fill out a couple things when we do this. So I'll click on create a blank one. We need to put in, what the name of this project's going to be. Then we need to specify the project URL. I think we can pick different namespaces. So I'm just going to say my new project. And then you notice you have a drop down. You can pick your different groups. So you have a namespace for your username, kind of like you're used to on GitHub if you have a user. But you can also use that group if you wanted to. It's your choice. Either one's fine. It doesn't really matter. I'm actually going to put it under the my user one for now, just to leave that other one alone, and then show how we're going to move this into a group and a new group in a second. And then let me look at this. And then you have some options, and one is, do you want this private? So you can have unlimited private projects if you'd like. That means another, you have to only be invited at a certain role to be able to see the project. Public, open source, that's what that means. I'm going to go ahead and say public on ours, and then initialize it with a README. I'm not going to do that. And then you can if you'd like to, but I'll show you the differences between these. And then you don't have to worry about security testing right now. And you don't need to worry about deployments, where we'll kind of talk about that at the end of this tutorial. So go ahead and click your project, and bam, you now have a new project. And if you check, you can see now, okay, we have the project we created at the beginning, and then we have this new one in this other, different namespace, our kind of different group. So we'll go back into this guy. And here's where I was going to pause and say, if you did it without the README and you look at your project, you'll see that it gives you a lot of commands for Git. If you are kind of new to Git, then this is a really great resource right here, I think, to be able to look at and understand how to do different operations. That's not really what this tutorial is about, but if you need that, there you go. And if you did initialize it with a README, you'll get this one over here that has a README, lots of links to like use the UI and such, but a lot less on the Git side. So if you wanted to, either one is perfectly fine. You can copy paste these in as we go forward. You'll see how to commit the code, but yeah, just so you know the difference between what that option does. Great. So now you've made your new project. So, we could start pushing code here, but we're going to now go over how to make a group through the UI. So the way to do that is up here at the top right. You can open this up and you'll see there's a lot of different options, and bam, new group right there. So we could do a new project from this one as well, but we have a new group right here. And this is kind of a tricky one to not know that that's up there for me. I've had to remind myself. And we can either import a group or create a group. A lot less options here, but we're going to be creating a group. And I'm just going to say, my awesome new group. Try to give it a unique name. And public or private, kind of the same. This actually does affect the projects that'll be inside of it. If this is private, the other ones, the projects underneath the group will be private as well. But if you want this one to be public, you can make a mixture of projects public and private. But so just so you know, that's kind of cascades down. I'm gonna get back up to speed. And now we're into the options that you can pick. Really, you just need to pick that visibility level on the group URL. You can do these other things if you want, but you don't have to. And software developer or others perfectly fine. I think we can skip all these, and you can invite people later, so you don't have to worry about that. Cool. So now we have a new group, and if we go and look, let's update that. Oh, maybe not. Oh, my awesome new group. Oh, okay. I think unless I put something in it, it won't show up. Yeah, so we now have a new group. So now we can create a new project, which we already did previously, or we can create another subgroup, which is nested groups. And so to maybe explain what that looks like, let's look at GitLab itself. So this is gitlab.org's group. This is their top level group. So you see that they have a group called the analytics section. There's a subgroup called product analytics. There's another subgroup in that called the engineers. So you can see there's deep testing. And only then do you hit the projects, the back end and the front end project for this part. And then there can also be these top level projects under GitLab. Versus if we look at GitHub, so a GitLab group is equal to what a GitHub is called an organization. The GitLab projects equal to the GitHub repository. So GitHub does not do the subgroup, it keeps it flat. So one that people might be familiar with is NumPy. That's an organization and it has many repositories inside of that, but you can't nest an organization inside of another organization. So what we are going to do is, yes. We're going to now say, hey, we have gotten, this project over here that's in my user namespace, but really I want to start creating a collaboration with other people. I need to move it out of my namespace. How do I do that? The way that we do that is if you go over here to settings and general, and then we're going to scroll all the way down to this advanced part. So that's what this is showing you is settings general. Go to advanced and expand. Then go down all the way and kind of even down into the danger area, as they say, all the red. But don't be afraid because it doesn't really matter right now. Transfer your project. You can select another namespace, another user namespace, or a group that you own. And here's that awesome new group that we made. So we're going to click on that one and say transfer the project. Are you absolutely sure? And yes, I am absolutely sure. Please type this to proceed. Confirm. So now if we go and look, it's no longer under Marshall, McDonald, / my new project, it's under our new group. So this is how if you need to modify the structure of all your different software stuff in your group, you can do that, you feel free. Great, so now we're kind of wrapping up that section right there. The conclusion, now you're able to make projects. So you could, make multiple of these, you make groups to kind of organize all the different projects if you want. And then you can move them around because as you go forward, you're going to need to do that, like iterations, right? So moving on, now you probably already might have a project that you've been working on. You want to import that, bring that in. How do you do that? So we're going to go over forking and cloning projects in GitLab. So maybe I should look for 1 second. Let me check the chat.
Yeah, so we do have a question that I think might be helpful for you to address, Marshall. The question is, what is the scope of each group or subgroup? For example, if I'm in the group, will I be able to contribute to all of the subgroups?
So that's a good question. We're going to go over roles later, but that's a really great question. Maybe I can even take a pause and show where that is. Maybe it would be better for me to bring that up sooner than later. No, I'm trying to get the Zoom stuff out the way. Sorry. There we go. So if we go to this group, and I just want to go to the group. Sorry. You can set the members of this here, and you can set their roles as owner and such. And then when you go into the project itself, you can set up different, sets or a different role there as well. So somebody at the top that might just be like have a small subset of stuff could own a project or a subgroup if you wanted them, if that kind of helps. So, but whatever they have at the top level, that cascades down. So like if they're an owner at the top, you can't demote them, down later down to have less privileges. No. If they own it's whatever their highest is at that group, that'll go all the way down. You can't go lower, but you can elevate them to where they can own a subgroup. I hope that's what answered that question. And oh, I see that. Yeah, are there any issues using spaces in the project name? You can do it in the project name, but the URL will switch them to dashes. It's personal preference. Yeah, if you want to do camel case, whatever. It's yeah, whatever your software project, whatever you'd like to do. Okay. Well, unless there's any burning things, I will keep on trucking. So we can get through the next part. So now we're going to go into our next part. Getting pre-existing projects, bringing them over into our groups and our software projects. So how do we do that? We're going to go over how to fork an existing GitLab project into your namespace or into your group. And then we're also going to go over cloning. This is just going to be a demo. You don't have to follow along. It's because you have to have like SSH keys set up. If you want to, feel free. I'm going to go kind of quick through it, but I think it's useful, and I'll explain why. So, forking an existing GitLab project in your group. So, if you have the slides available, use this link, and you can go to this repo. This is the one I kind of had set up previously. So I will open in a new tab. I'm going to go to this guy. And right up here, you can see that I'm going to fork it. So you can change the project name if you want to. You can keep it the same. You can change or you can pick which group you want it to go to. This is my username space one. This is that default group. This is that awesome new group, and that's the one I'm going to pick. And then the project slug. So yeah, what's the difference between the project name and the project slug? I thought I might say this is going to be what the URL shows up as up here, kind of like how this, my new group 873.661. This one has a 2 in it, but this is the one that you can, put the spaces in, my new repo. And you see that it's changing the slug for you on the fly. So yeah, the spaces don't matter in the project name. You just can't do that in the slug. So I'm going to change that back to match. You can add a description, public or private. So I'm going to go ahead and click on fork. I'll let that run and then jump back over to the slides. And this might take a little bit because it's, cloning that repo and then bringing it over. Okay, and now it's here. So this is, we just got that code that I owned on another namespace and I brought it over into this one. So this is how if you did create an account and you're just going to throw it away later, but you want to come back and do single sign-on, this is how you can get all those projects, in between them and move them around if you'd like. So yeah, mainly you just need to select that namespace you want it to land in, and then you can optionally change that other stuff. Yeah. So this is a good point to say. So when you do that fork, you're gonna see that it shows up in the new namespace. So we see that my awesome new group has my new repo, which I didn't have before. And if we go here, my awesome new group has my new repo and my new project. So this is the one that we had forked. It shows, you get to keep the commits. So all 6 commits that I had to, this through Git and such, they're going to stay there. It's going to show you where you forked it from. So you kind of, that upstream, where did it originally come from? But one thing it doesn't have the issues. It won't bring over some of that kind of more project managed stuff. So here there's like issues that we're going to go over here in depth in a little bit, but those don't come over with you. So that's kind of just one note. Another example, this is just pointing out ASE, the atomic simulation environment. It's on GitLab.com. You can see, 615 people have, forked it. But this is important to say that if, one of these more mature ones, you can fork those, get them yourself and modify them as needed for your own purposes. Or if you're going to, provide fixes and dependency, to your dependencies and such, like if you were depending on ASE, you could fork it, make the change. That you have to be able to know how to fork to be able to contribute back over to that other project. So an important skill to know, when you should use it, when you shouldn't. Okay, so now I'll say this is demo only. You don't have to do this part, but this is just to show you, and that's why this is great at the top, because unless you have SSH keys, you're not gonna be able to do this. What if you just, for some reason, can't fork? You can't get this project over to that one, or you didn't want to do it as a fork, or, for some reason. So what you can do is you can do a clone. And if you need to know where that is over here, you click clone and you can do SSH or HTTPS. So I usually set up my keys and I do, clone with SSH. And then clone it down locally. So you'd run like git clone git at gitlab.com, this repo. So that's just copy and pasting that. Then you could go in and create a blank project in the UI, whatever you want to call it. So I'm calling it my new repo-clone this time. Don't initialize with the README. That's kind of important. You don't want anything, no Git history in this guy, and then go ahead and create that project. And then go into that cloned repo. So, this is back on your, machine or whatever, where you run Git, and you go ahead and clone, that one you want to recreate, and clone. Do git remote-v, and you can see where your origin is set at. So it was set at my new group, my new repo, and you want to change that to point to this new blank one. So this is how you're going to be able to, without going through any UIs or anything, you're just using the git command tool to move a repository or a project. So you can say, change the origin, git, we're going to change the remote origin. So in the remote, we're going to set the URL of origin to this group that we just made, this my new group, my new repo-clone. And then you push that cloned repo. So you push all the one that you cloned up to this new spot. And then I kind of done this previously, and it, just to say you get the my new repo, just like we did with the fork. It doesn't show any of the fork stuff. You don't get any of the issues and such not. So yeah, why did I show you this? Well, this is a strategy that really works well to move projects between any of the Git platforms. It doesn't matter what, because you don't have to worry about the UI and the talking between them. It's just you using the command line Git tool. So forks only, this isn't really true, but it's sometimes they might only work on the same instance. They might not be integrated with others and such. Like I've run into it enough times where I couldn't fork it for some reason, that this kind of got me around that. Come across it enough, I thought I'd include it with this. So with that conclusion, kind of at a surface level, you're now able to move projects around either through the fork, or if you want to come back and reference this through the clone. So I'll take pause for a second and come back over to the chat. Okay, it looks like nothing new. Great, awesome. We'll keep trucking along. So now, whoops. Oh, it's not going back. There we go. So now you are able to, create new projects, create new groups, move those around, even bring in pre-existing stuff. But now your project's kind of growing. You're getting more and more work, and you want to kind of track that work a little bit better. So I think that it's important now to talk about creating issues, tasks, that you want to do in your software project, and associating those. So now we're going to go over working with issues to organize the project work via GitLab. So how can it do that? So, we're jumping back into some hands-on. We're going to go through and learn how to create issues to track your software development, identify, you open an issue. Is it a task? Is it a defect? What is it? And then how do you kind of submit work to close that issue out? So the hands-on on this is we're going to create an issue, create a label. Then we're going to create a group label. So I should say that first one's project label. We're going to create a group label. We're going to make a quick feature branch off of that issue. We're going to figure out how to do that by using the built-in web IDE into GitLab, and then show how to do a merge request. If you've done a pull request and get a merge request in GitLab, how to close out that issue. So kind of showing the life cycle of managing work. So the first things we're going to do, I'm going to close some tabs, is go into our, I'm not in the right one, am I? No, my new project. So our blank one that doesn't have anything in it right now. And first things first, we're going to go over to issues list and click on creating a new issue. So that's right over here, issues list. There we go. And then you can read a little bit about, stuff, but a new issue. Okay, so let's see what I have. We're going to add a, this is kind of a mock one that I have. But it's to say, all right, 1 second. So this is to say, looking at it's kind of more like a web service and such, but, add a status to the value. So you can kind of put whatever you'd like, but I just thought I'd say a user story type of issue, kind of putting like what this is in the title initially. So we're just going to say add extra meta data to return the value. And then, as a user, I want to have the status returned to me, as well as the returned, or the kind of urged value. And then I wonder if we go over, I think that's it. Yep. And then we're just going to create it. We're not going to worry about assigning it, milestones, labels. We'll go over this in a second. We're going to create that issue. So this is, hey, I need to do this, add this new feature, add this new work. So that's the bare bone basics of just how to put something in so you know what you need to work on. And now we're going to go over, creating a label, because was that a defect? Was that what type of thing was that? So we're going to go over here to labels, and we're going to, or I find this the easiest way. We're going to go to labels. We have none. We open it, we see there are none. We're going to manage our project labels. So here we can see that we're following, in the project information and the labels. We can create a new label. And let me just refer to the slide. Yeah, a new label, and we're going to drop in here and say, this is a type of new feature. Use a story for a new feature, and then pick whatever pretty color you want. So, I think I can have some save. There we go. Oh, yeah, maybe I should type it out. So I don't cheat. And then you can pick a background color, whatever you want it to kind of show up that indicates to you that what it means. So I'm going to create that label. And now we see that we've created our first label. So, and you see that it's a new feature. These are user stories for new features that you want to create, and then, where this label exists, because it gets associated with, some type of entity. And yeah, now we're showing that that's created there. So now we are going to go back to our issue. We created an issue and we created a label, but if we look at the, I'm going to go to issues and list. We have this issue. It still doesn't have any label on it. We created a label. We need to now associate that label with it. So now we have that as a drop down. Now we can say new feature. So now Marshall added new feature label just now. So now you can kind of identify what type of issues you have. What do they mean, or what type of work are they? Yeah. So, and if we notice, this is at our project level. At your code level. I want to go over now, like what I think is this is almost something now we're going to go kind of fix is to say, when you get into using groups more and you have multiple of these, you don't want to probably duplicate these across the projects. You really want to create these at the group level. So now we're going to go up to the group, and sorry, just to reiterate, we're at the project right here. We see my project. I'm going to click on the group. And if we notice up here, group information labels, there's labels up there too as well. So group information labels, and if I go over to the slides, group information labels, and we're going to click create a new label there. Because if we notice, it says we don't have any labels, even though we did just create one. We're actually going to make the exact same one, right? User story for new feature. So exact same type of label, we're just doing it at the group now. Pick whatever color you'd like, create that label. Okay, and now that one exists. So if we, yeah, and I think I've already gone, yep. So now we have the new feature at the group level versus before it was at the project level. So yeah, let's now, we only see one showing up here. Let's go into the group, and then let's go to my new project, and let's look at the labels now. Wait, project information labels, yeah. So we have two of the exact same thing, and we don't, if, dry, don't repeat yourself. You don't want to be repeating all your labels, So what you need to do is clean this up a little bit. Let's just do this at the group level. When you have multiple projects, you can reuse them. So the way that we're going to do this, and let me just make sure I'm following the slides. Yeah, we're going to go to the one for the project. So that's this one. See, this is the group, and the project, that's just the group. We're going to go to this guy over here, and we're going to delete it. Delete that one that we made at the very beginning. And now we just have that group label. Yeah. So yeah, in the slides, yeah, click on that, delete, and then get to the point where you just see that group label. But what does that now mean? Okay, sorry. What does that now mean for our issues, right? If we go back into this, we've lost our label, right? Because we deleted it. Makes sense. But now we have that group label that we can associate with it. So this is kind of a managing of the software project, do these little things so you don't have to repeat yourself so much, or, if you're going to do a group, put stuff up there for labels. So now that we've done that, we've got it. We want to start doing the work to address this. We're here in the issue. So we're in the project, the issue. We see it's a new feature. I'm going to go ahead and work on this for, the day. Before I just go off and create a branch somewhere and do all that, I love to use this feature. It really helps automate some things for you. If you click here where it says create merge request and branch, you could do that. You can also just create a branch, and it's automatically going to create a branch name that'll help associate it with this ticket. So this is how you can associate your work really easily just through the UI to figure out how to do these things. And you can pick the branch that you need to create it off of. We only have one right now, so we're going to do main. You could also create the merge request at the same time as the branch. That really lets people know that you're working on it and seeing, versus having to find your branch. But let me check something. There we go. I don't know why that was doing that, but create branch. Cool. It's not liking what I'm doing. Something. Let me go back and try again. Create branch. Create branch. Yeah, perfect. So now we have the branch, and we can do the work in this. Oh, I think it was because I didn't have anything. I didn't have any code yet in main was why that was doing that. So yeah, if you can use that to create the branch name. And now typically you would go to probably clone this down, do the work. But today I'm just going to show you how to quickly do this so we stay in the browser, stay in the UI. We don't have to drop down to the command line. How to use the web IDE. So I'm going to go up here to the web IDE. Notice we're on the right branch, and we're going to click on that. And we're going to land in, yes, this was brand new to me. VS Code now. This was not, this is a pretty new feature. Yeah, recently for me switched to, code. So apologies, I'm learning this as well. So the first things first that I realized I had to get used to was if you can see down here on the bottom left, and hopefully it's pointed out in the slides there, you can control, you can control which branch you're working on down here on the left. And then you can, if you're familiar with this IDE, then you'll be, ready to go. But you can click on, the files to explore, search for things, the source control to do the commit. Oh, you can even run it and debug it. That was incredible. Yeah. Sorry. And so we're just going to go in here though and just say, hello world. And then we want to commit this to this branch. So we're going to go over here to the source control, and you see it says one. It says, hey, you changed one of the files, and we're going to say, added hello world, or fixing or added new feature. And then commit and push. Commit to a new branch. You can do that, or you can say no. We just want to do it to the current one because we're on the right one. So you could make a branch if you were doing these, but we're going to say no. And then it says down here, success. Your changes have been committed. Do you want to create a merge request? And I'm going to go ahead and click on that. But I'll go back to the slides just so we get it twice. You can pick the branch that you're on. You can make the changes over here in the IDE. You can add your commit. You can click here to get to the point where you can say, this is the commit message, commit and push that. And then you'll see it says, hey, do you want to make a brand new branch? Or, no, I just want to use the current one that I'm on. And then you can go ahead and create that merge request. So now if we go over here, let me get the slides back up. We're going to go over how to maybe fill this out to say, we're going to close this out. So automatically, if you notice, it says it's going to close number one. And the reason that is because of that branch name, because we created the branch via the UI. And this is something I just learned in the last, few years from a colleague of mine, John Hetrick, who, I was like, oh, that's really awesome. So, it really helps standardize how your branch names go. So you can say, work includes adding hello world, fixed the return value, added docs, of course, and added tests. Yeah. And 2 tests to be nice, run the tests, just to help with that review process. And then you can assign it to who you need to. And then let me just make sure I'm in sync with the slides. You don't have to fill these out because we don't have anybody else, and we're going to go ahead and create that merge request. Cool. So now this is open. It says automatically going to close number one. Interestingly, if we want to, and you don't have to do this, but you can go over to that issue and you can see that, it tells us that it created a branch for us to address this issue 3 minutes ago. This got mentioned in this merge request. So it's linking back and forth between the task that you're doing and the work you're performing to close out that task. So we're back in the merge request now. Yeah, so create a merge request to address the issue. We've done that. Things to point out is, it's going to merge our branch into our, the default branch that we want to. You can usually click here to see what the changes are going to be. We're going to add hello world. In the overview, it has all this. And then one note is that these are normally going to be done by a reviewer, not yourself, but today it's it's just us. So now you take off your developer hat, put on your reviewer hat to say, okay, I've reviewed this code, looks great. I'm going to go ahead and approve it. It was approved by me. It's going to do one commit, merge commit to main. And then I do want to go ahead and just delete that branch because I don't need it after this. This is finishing out this work. Let's go ahead and merge that work in. And now we see that hello world showing up, and we're no longer on that feature branch, and it no longer even exists. We're in main, and there are no issues anymore. If we go over to, my projects, issues, and lists, we see there's none that are open, but there is one now that is closed. And that was because of the branch name thing that we did at the front. So, we've merged it, tells me who I was merged by, says when I merged it. And we went through, and so we went to the issues and listed them. There's none that are open, but we see there is the one that we just closed. So now we're at another pause where, we just finished, how to create issues to say, hey, I need to do this work. I need to do this work. I need to do this work, pile that up for yourself. Then create the labels to identify the issues. Hey, is this going to be, a new feature, a defect, create a branch or exploratory, or create a branch that will specifically address that issue. A little bit of how to use the new web IDE that's coming out, or that has come out, and then how to submit that merge request, pull request in GitHub to close out that task. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second, just pause. Yeah, thank you, Josh. Yeah, exactly. That was tripping me up. I hope I didn't trip up too many people, but the reason it was getting angry at me is because there was no branch or nothing in the original branch. So appreciate that.
Hey, Marshall, with these topics that you're going through in the second half, I think it's starting to be a little bit more where folks aren't as comfortable. So would you mind going just a little bit slower so folks can follow along?
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're tracking our work a little bit better. Your team's growing since your project work is growing. So you need to effectively manage the software a little bit more. So these are a little bit of extra stuff on top of what we just did to kind of streamline how to do the issues, and then how to see all that work a bit better with issue boards. And then if you have deadlines for hey, there's a sponsor, or hey, I have a presentation by this time and I need to have these features done by that time, how to set up milestones to track that. So we're going to go over issue templates, issue boards, and milestones in GitLab. And so we're going to try to streamline how to create issues with structure, how to visualize issue boards, and then how to do milestones. So going into this, we first want to add how to do an issue template. So again, we're going to jump right back into the web IDE. Clean up my tabs for just 1 second. Oh, no, I didn't want to do it all the way back to there. Sorry, 1 second. Let me clean up. There we go. So we're going to go back to our project right here. And we have the hello world, and we're on looking at the main branch. We're going to go to the web IDE again. And now we're going to do some of the stuff where it's kind of I'd like to say without going through the documentation, you're not going to know that you can make this special named .gitlab issue templates. So we're going to go in here and say, create a new folder called .gitlab. And once you have that, we're going to create a new file in that. And I think it's called issue templates. MD. Let me double check. Oh, no, I messed up. Let me delete that file. Delete permanently. Yeah. Had another folder, issue templates. And we're making this because this is a special path that GitLab will know about to do something for your issues. So, yeah. So yeah, create .gitlab and then issues templates, those two directories. And now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of build off of that new feature idea. We're going to say, let's create a new file in there called new feature request.md. So if I go in here, I'm going to say, create a new file and say new feature request.md markdown file. And then, yeah, we can put in kind of basically what you want to call is like a template, a template to say new feature, and you can put in whatever you'd like, but just a little bit of structure about it. Like you might want to know who is requesting this feature. So who's the requester? Insert name, how to test it, description. So you don't just, maybe like how you're gonna get to that goal. And we'll just leave it with that. You can put in kind of whatever you'd like. And then let me just check. Yeah. And so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna commit that change. Sorry, I'm not the Zoom stuff going. So again, we're gonna go over to the source control button, and we're gonna commit and say, adding, new feature template, issue template, or whatever you'd like to kind of say. And we're gonna commit and push this. And we're gonna do it a little different this time. We can say, commit to a new branch, because you don't really, we're gonna say we're adding issue templates and press enter to confirm your input. I'll pause there for just kind of a second to make sure if you're following along. And then it says successful, your change has been committed on that new branch. And we even see down here, it says adding issue templates, it switched to that branch. And we're going to go ahead and merge these in. So we're just kind of doing a repeat of what we already did. Work includes adding new feature issue template. And you don't have to put that if you don't want, but it already has kind of a title. We're merging this into main. You can do assignees reviewers, but let's go ahead and just do what we did before. Create the merge request. It says ready to merge. We see that we're adding this new directory, these two new directories with a new feature markdown, and merge that in. And so if we go back here, now we see we have .gitlab issue templates and that markdown file. Yep, and that's what shows up. But is that really useful? Well, let's go see. So let me get caught up on the slides. Yep. Oh, no, I'm already there. Yep. Let's go to our issues, and we're going to make a new issue. So under issues and lists, let's create a new issue. And now we're going to say, adding new feature for, foo bar. And then you see there's a type. There's a description. Yep. Choose a template. So now we have new feature dash request. And if we click on that, it automatically adds some stuff to structure that type of issue for you. So not only do we have like labels that we can associate with this, we can even give structure to the content about people report issues. So this is me and how to test. Make sure foo returns bar, and then you can assign it. But then we're going to create that issue. Cool. And it's not the best structure. I kind of messed up the markdown, but that's okay. But we can kind of see what it would look like to say to go in here. And if you made multiple, then you could see that you could make multiple different project templates and give them some like very elaborate structure if you'd like. And you don't have to follow those exactly necessarily right now. And we kind of went through this, how to pick that project template, fill that out. Oh, I did forget that. Add the label to say, hey, this is a new feature label. There we go. So now with that, we're just going to kind of do this a few more times. We're going to go back and create these labels. So, we got the issue templates now, and if you wanted to, you can keep making more issue templates for each of these, but we're going to make these couple of labels. And I'm going to pull them up over here so I can make sure I can see them. Yep. Okay. So under issues, list. We're going to labels. Sorry. So under project information, labels. So now we see we've got the new feature. We're going to add a couple more. So we're going to say new label. And first I'm going to do our backlog, or well, let's do the defects first. Defect. So we can pick defect. And these are bugs that need to be fixed. Color that I always associate with bugs is red. So, put that in for this type of label. See that shows up. And I'm already doing a problem. I am putting this in the project, not at the group. So let's delete that label. Let's go to the group. So click on the group information labels, and a new label there. That's where we want to be. And say defect and bugs that need to be fixed, or whatever you'd like to put there. And again, I'm picking red, and let's create that label. Next, we'll do the in progress one. In progress issues that are being worked. That's usually a good thing, so I like green for that one. And then one for all the issues that just keep piling up. We're going to do a backlog. So backlog for low priority. It's orange for being on hold. Okay. So it is kind of important. We'll pause here for a minute and make sure everybody can get to kind of that state. So if you're following along on slide 85, try to get to something that looks like that. Mainly the labels, the description is not that important. Go into the next part. And I'll pause for a second. Oh, I don't know. Okay. Yeah, actually promoting it. Maybe I should be promoting it. I think I default and I always put it at the group levels, but thank you, Keith. That's a good, yeah, maybe I should. Let's look at promoting it real quick.
It looks like it did that. I did it. I just promoted. So it looks like we did the same thing.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Much better way than to delete it and then lose all that and then have to go back and redo it. So, and maybe just while we are here, let me do that just to kind of give a little bit of time to make sure everybody's caught up on that part. Project information labels. You can say security issue. That's a really bad one. Yep. Create that label. Whoops, made it at the wrong one. Issues, and then promote to group label. Group label. Okay, great. Yeah, and existing ones will still be merged. That's awesome. Perfect, perfect. Thank you, Keith.
Hey, Marshall, I have a quick question for you. It's more of a logistics question. Do you want me to give you a 15-minute warning when we're 15 minutes away from the hour?
Yeah, I think my 4:30 mark, I might say, hey, let's jump over to this part, and I'll try to do the last 15 minutes on the CI/CD stuff, and then maybe 20, if that sounds good. But yeah,
Okay,
if
so,
you can too, that'd
so
be
at
great.
20, so at 4:40, I'll give you a heads up.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
And so right now we have our, hopefully everybody's caught up. If not, feel free to work through it. And we're going to start creating some issues. So you can just make, say 3 issues. You don't even really have to put anything in them. But let's just kind of mix up a couple of these labels with them. And, mixing up the in progress and the backlog, because that's kind of like when it's being worked on versus new feature and defect. And if you want to, feel free to copy this one, or, try to get to the point where you're at what 87 looks like exactly. But let's try to go here to list. So yeah, if we're in our project issues list, we still have one open. And you know what? We're going to say that this guy is, I'm going to start working on that one. So that one's in progress. So we've got one down. So if I go to, click on issues up here, new issue, task 2, I'm not even going to write anything, but I can pick the labels directly from here, which I missed on the last one. But if you want, as you're creating a new issue, you can click here on labels and say, this one, it's going to go in the backlog. It's a new feature, so not so pressing for us. Let's create that issue. And then just kind of, as I said, mix and match what you'd like to do. But just maybe, at least 3, if not 4, to have task 3. So this one's not going to be good. We're going to have a defect. And that one's going to be in progress, of course. That issue. Then I do one more. Task 4. Say new feature backlog. Okay, so if you can go to issues list and you can look at all these and try to figure out what's being currently worked on, what's not. But as this list grows and grows and you have multiple pages of this, it's going to be really hard to visualize it this way in just a pure list. So what we're going to go over is how to create a board so you can look at your work a bit better. So under issues and boards, if you click on that, and you can do this at the group level, you can do it at the project level, you can do it at either, but we're going to just do it at the project level today. You click on issues and you click on boards. Okay, so you should see this right now. We get to see our closed issues and our open issues. That doesn't really help us a lot, right? Because that's still the same kind of information. But we need to add a little bit more to this to make it to where you can see it. So we're going to create a list over here on the top right. And just to make sure, in the slides, if you click on boards, we got to this view and you're going to go to create list, and then you're going to select a label. So you might want to see which ones are the defects or the new features, but really for me, it's like, what are the ones that are currently being worked on? That's the one that I'd like to see. So I went on to create a list, and then you pick the label that you want, and then that will show up as a column. And then you can see that it shows all the other ones as well. And then you can create another one of these if you'd like for the backlog, and then add that one to the board. And then I like to go from left to right time-wise. So I like to grab the backlog and I like to move it over here. So now we're making what we call a Kanban board. And you can see that, you have what's open, what's in the backlog, what's in progress, and what's closed. Sometimes not super useful to look at the open one. You can just hide it, or if you don't want it at all, I think you can delete that one. But you can move that one over there, and then you can, see the closed ones. And now you have the ability to see what work's being, in progress. Of course, the defect, if it was back here, that's a problem. No, you want that one in progress as soon as possible. And you can prioritize the work kind of going through your, development pipeline. So I'll look ahead to see Yeah, so basically the goal right now is to get to something that resembles this, to where you can see that you have kind of a backlog and in progress, and you can have issues between them. And one, as you're doing that, one interesting thing is as I'm sitting here and moving them back and forth, if I actually go into that issue, it's keeping track of all that. It keeps saying, hey, that label got added. Hey, that label got removed. Hey, that label got added and that label got removed. So it's keeping track as you move this stuff, so you can actually know, like, provenance of your issues of what states they're going back and forth in between. So I'm going to pause on milestone for just a second. Yes, yeah, Molly, yeah, I think, yeah. And then, okay, I think that was the only question. I might go through milestones a little quicker, just to give us time for the last little bit. So if we go to so you don't have to follow along if you don't really want to, but on the milestones. So if we go to issues and we go to, we have the boards and we go to the milestones, create a new milestone. And I'm going to call this, July 1, 2023 demo. And then you can start the date. Oh, wait, whoops. You can start it now. And then you want to, I keep hitting the wrong one, as it says, this is due by July 1st. Need to demo to our collaborators at, Brookhaven National Lab or something. And you say Knoxville, create a milestone. So nothing too exciting right now, but what we need to do is after you create that milestone, you can go back into your issues now and start adding a milestone to them. So if we go to the issues that we have, those specific ones that I really want are like task 2 and 4. So I'm going to go to 4 and say, hey, this needs to be on this milestone. And then I'm going to go to the issues and say task 2 and associate it with that same milestone. And why this is important is now you can go to your milestones. So you can see how much percentage complete you have by that deadline. Before on the Kanban board, you can see it moving, but you don't have any deadlines around like when you need something done by. So this helps you kind of burn down that work by a certain time. And then you can click inside of it and you can see, which ones are started, which ones are ongoing, and which ones are completed. And it's kind of, if you have a merge request, it'll show up there. So yeah. And then, I kind of already hit on it, but the advice between issue boards versus milestones and other stuff. You kind of need both. You need that global view of all your issues with the issue board, but you do want the milestones too to put you, on time for delivery dates, if you want to keep a project moving. And you can move the issues across different milestones. If it doesn't happen in this one, pop it onto the next one. Things I haven't covered, a bunch of different stuff that's in the premium version, but you don't really need it. Honestly, like there's a lot, unless you have a huge project, you don't need to pay for those extra features off the bat. So I think we're kind of talked about the conclusions. Now what we're going to do is that you see like the number of bugs are increasing as you're doing all this work. You're managing all, you're seeing it, but like defects keep popping up now. What you need to do is probably automate some code checks. So we're going to go over kind of not really into the nitty-gritty, but how to mess with the CI file, but hey, how to like set up CI in GitLab and go to some resources based on your project. So we're going to go over continuous integration in GitLab, automating code checks. And I pulled this from GitLab themselves for their CI stuff, but what is it? It's, you create a new branch, you want to push those code changes in. Well, CI is when you kind of automate, making sure your changes and other people's changes, they come together, you build. And then if you want to, check for formatting, check for testing, check for all of these things to make sure that code is still working properly, push those fixes. Then when it gets into the next or the main branch, do those changes again. And then finally, kind of, hey, review and approve. This helps your reviewers know that they don't have to look through the code to find the bugs. You have stuff set up to automatically check for that. So doing the comparison, GitLab CI versus GitHub Actions. So GitLab CI, there's a link here, and GitHub Actions link here. Little differences, but they can pretty much do, most of the same stuff. They were, I feel like at that time they were a lot different. I think GitLab CI was higher along, but now GitHub Actions, they're kind of pretty much right in line. The one I didn't find one going from GitHub to GitLab, but GitHub does provide the going from GitHub or GitLab CI to GitHub Actions, and I actually used it for some projects that I moved over to GitHub because I go back and forth between them, and it was really useful. It was really helpful, and I think that was probably one of the best resources to point out those differences. So now we're going into the hands-on part of how to do this. So, really just want to show you how you set up CI with GitLab, and then how you can find templates for your CI pipelines that GitLab provides. Because every code that you use will be different, your project will be different than, everybody in here. So I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty about how to actually do the correct way to set up, to do CI for a certain project. But in the UI, we see right here, there is a big, easy to click on Setup CI/CD button. So we're going to go back into our project. And there we go, Setup CI/CD. If you click on that, you notice it dropped you directly into the CI/CD tab over here and the editor. And that editor is specifically for setting up these CI files. And this is a big one to note right here. It tells you exactly which file, kind of how we did that GitLab/issue templates for. There's a special file, secret file, .gitlab-ci.yaml spelled YML, not YAML. It won't find the YAML. I found that out the hard way so many times. That's the file that we're creating, and that's the magic one. So just to make sure, yep, that's important. Let's configure the pipeline. And it's dropping us into the kind of the older, what I call the older style web IDE almost, but this one is pretty specific. This is just the pipeline editor. So it has some interesting stuff where you can visualize it. You can see what it's going to do. You can validate the pipeline if you want. Yeah, and you can look at the YAML. So this IDE is really specific to the YAML file that you're creating. But just to let you know that the stages, that's what's setting up this right here, the build stage, the test stage, the deploy stage. And then you have jobs inside of those. And that's almost the exact same nomenclature on GitHub Actions. So, the build, the test, and the deploy. And then what you do is you set up a job. You say, I'm going to do the build job, and it's part of the build stage. And then you write a script, and you say, yeah, I'm compiling the code, the compiling is complete. Now I'm in the test stage. So we're in, it finished the build. It's going to go into the test. It's going to do the unit test job and the lint test job. So, we're just doing some echo and running stuff, but the stage right here you see is what tells it, which part of that pipeline it's going to be in. And then finally, the deploy stage for the deploy job. And this is all just, echo commands. So yeah, adding CI YAML, commit the changes. And I'm just going to go straight to main for this one. Checking pipeline status. So now we can go to CI/CD, and it failed. Interesting. I don't know why. Oh, it did not. Okay, let me check what's going on. I'm gonna run it and see. Pipeline. Oh. Interesting. Okay, I did not have this before. To use free CI, you need to register your credit card. I did not have this before when I made 2 accounts. I wonder if any reason. Oh no. I'm not going to register a credit card right now. Switch to the other account real quick. And then maybe I should check the chat, but maybe others are able to.
I'm using my own account, and as far as I know, I haven't given it a credit card, and it appears to be working.
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
I've set up
maybe
2 accounts this week. Yeah, like one was 2 days ago and it went fine. So yeah, very confused. Sorry. um,
So mine gave me an error message. It says that it failed at the build stage because it failed to pull the Ubuntu image from Docker. So
oh no, if Docker is down, that would be Docker Hub's down. I'm just gonna try it with a different account, but I'm suspecting this will be the same. Yeah. Yeah.
This is giving us a very real world example of what it is to run a CI pipeline.
Yeah. Yeah. When it fails.
Very, very brittle.
Yeah. Well, if it let me go. Well, I apologize that.
I mean, since this is a very realistic simulation, I guess, is there a way to sort of flag if someone tries to get something through to review and it fails because of something like this, as opposed to a problem with the code?
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, you check in your pipelines because you'll get an output. I was going to say I can go into the one that I think that I linked previously, and you might see that the pipeline failed. And sometimes you inspect it, and then you say, "Oh, wait, this is failing because of some unit test," or "Hey, there's a timeout because you're talking to a third-party service or something." Usually I just put it as a reviewer in the comments to say, "Hey, this one failed because of that reasons." Go open the issue if it's something we can fix, and then let those code changes through. If that helps answer that question.
Yeah, Marshall, I just gave mine a try on my account that I made with SSO with GitHub, and I got the same thing you did. I think they're just trying to reduce the amount of spam they're getting.
Gotcha. Okay, maybe it's that, because I was going to say this worked. I made a new account on Monday and it was running. So, and that's yeah. And so if you need, I can drop this. We're going to have to drop now down to, I guess, demo. So I'm going to stop sharing and make sure this is in the chat. You can go to this one and look through this project and see this stuff. So we'll assume it all worked. I apologize. Yeah. Yeah. And if this is running exactly what we had just done. Gosh, we can probably even see when it ran. Yeah, wow, this one was 2 weeks ago, sorry. But you can go now, let's assume that it did run. You can go into these jobs and you can see what the standard output is. So you see that it's using Docker, it is pulling that image. And then it's just, echoing out those commands and then cleaning up. So there's, you can see exactly like command on the the standard output of what's actually happening in each of these jobs. So if that question about, hey, what if I see the pipeline's failing for some weird reason, one of these jobs is failing for something like that. That's usually, this is exactly how I would do it. I would go in here, I'd find what did error out, and then I'd say, oh, this has nothing to do with your code changes. This is why. If we can control, if it's a defect that we need to fix for some third-party service, we do control. Go open the issue and address it, but otherwise, yeah, don't block up the work there. Well then, sorry. So that being said, now that we are dropping down to kind of demonstration only, I did want to really point out where, and I don't think I use it enough, and I'll drop this as well in the chat. I'm sorry, I got to quit sharing to do it. This is a really good resource that I find that GitLab provides. It is CI pipelines for all of your different types of programming languages. So kind of out of the box. So here's a Python one. If you're developing in Python, how to test, run, produce the GitLab pages, and then actually if you have a deployment, you have to kind of fill that in yourself. But also, I don't know, Terraform, or if you're deploying stuff to AWS or Java or C++, these get you started. I've been turning to these more and more and more after handwriting so many CI files. So I wanted to point that out because that'll get you going with the stuff that you might need to do. So yeah, please. What we would have been doing is grabbing just the bash one, committing that file, or actually, and then, which is the one that we were just looking at. We would have saw that it would have been running. I wonder if I can even, well, we won't even worry about it. Yeah, so one thing that I want to note is, what do you need to run CI? So to run continuous integration, you need these runners. And so GitLab is providing them. And so that's kind of probably why they're throttling us. But these are servers that will carry these jobs out for you that are constantly sitting there. And it is this GitLab CI runner tool that's installed on those machines that allows them to pick up those jobs. And it's a many-to-many relationship. So there, you can have one runner to many projects, and you can have, many runners to one project, and many-to-many. So what I think is really cool, and why what really helps at ORNL is that we can self-manage GitLab. So then or you can actually bring your runners to GitLab.com and stuff. But you can put runners that have GPUs or cloud compute resources, or maybe it's an ARM architecture. You can add the hardware that you need to specifically test it by installing this runner software on it and then associating it with a project. You can also do the same with GitHub. You can do self-hosted runners there as well. So this is what we would have been able to do. I'll go quickly now through the software artifacts. To say that, hey, now you're getting your code stuff out there, but you really want to get this in the hands of, who's going to be able to use it. And this was going to be a demo only, really, so this won't be too bad. But there's artifact registries, so you can put packages, and here's the different kind of PyPy, npm for JavaScript, I think Conan's for C++, generic. You can just drop a tarball in there, Ruby gems. You can do containers. You guys even do infrastructure as code. GitLab can host these for you, and you can kind of CD. You can automate this. So we saw continuous integration, and once you get all that merged in, you can use the same exact tool, that same exact file to deploy this as well, or package it up. I'll kind of skip through these and say what we're going to do is I'll quickly try to walk through. If it's okay, Lauren, I'll take 10 minutes maybe, and we'll leave the last 15 minutes if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. Thank you. I'd like to just show quickly how to do packaging for a Python project, and then how to do a container build. So the reference project, so that group that I dropped in there, there's something called MCPy, I just a name, but it's like Monte Carlo to calculate pi in it. So it's just a really simple Python project. You don't need to really run through the code. I just tried to get it running. But what it's really trying to show is how to do publishing a Python package, like a library. So the GitLab reference documents, if you need to go and see all the package registries, is here. And then the specific one to PyPy, if you do Python, is here as well, if you want some additional reading. But this is what we're adding to that CI file, this job, the package and the stage deploy. We're using the script to say, hey, let's pip install some, build and twine inside of the container image that GitLabs.com usually would be providing. Let's run the build tool to kind of create the artifact, and then CI job token, this GitLab CI token, CI project ID. These are all special variables that GitLab allows the runner to have access to authenticate with your package registry. So what this one is doing is we're defining the stuff for the twine tool. Then we're using Python, the twine, Python twine to upload it to the package registry. And we're uploading all of the distribution files that were built in this prior one. And then we're saying only on tag. So only like if you tag, if you want to put out a version, will it do this? And I kind of talked through all this, but these are those links if you want to know a little bit more about what this is doing. The build tool from PyPA, that's generating the source distribution. Twine, that interacts with that PyPy package registry, and then those predefined GitLab CI variables. You can use this link to see what all of them are, but if you want to just look at these get you 80% of the way for most pipelines. So in the go to, actually want to use that link myself. Do it this way. So this is this is where those lines of code sit. If you go there, and then this is that MCPI. We're going to go to a pipeline. And then deployment. I probably should have copied the exact one that would have worked. Okay, there is a version. I tagged a version right here of 0.0.1. And if I look at that guy, it's going to do the package job. And so getting all the way down here, this is where it's running that twine, and it's uploading distribution to gitlab.com. It's uploading the wheel and the tarball. And so if we go to package registries over here and look at the package registry, this is where that's getting put. So MCPI, if we click on that, you can see that this is, shows the history of when it was created. It shows the pip command you would use to actually pull this down. And then the registry kind of setup if you want to kind of do this continuously. And then here's those files themselves. So this is meant to show you that, how do you finish out and get that package put up and stored properly as an artifact, or somebody could pip install it if you were able to do that. And that's what this one's kind of walking through. Yeah, and that's what we were just saying. Yeah, package registry, you see the version and you see the files. So now we're going to quickly go through container builds. So if you do containers, or if you're familiar with Docker, I had to kind of dig on this a little bit, because we're able to do something with our own runners where we didn't have to, I didn't have to jump through some of the hoops that I have to with these runners I don't control. So again, we're using the exact same reference projects. Or the reference project. There are, the container registry, there's docs here. And then how do you use Docker image, a Docker container to build another Docker image? They have documentation here. But just to, give the answer, these are the lines of codes that are allowing you to do this, that I pulled from the documentation. At the top, you specify the image that's going to be used in all your jobs. And in that template, that CI template we looked at, we're using the Python one. But down here, I actually want to use this Docker image to spin up to where I can use the Docker tools. But that won't work alone, because what you need to be able to do is talk to the Docker daemon. So this is really kind of, like, you got to know a little bit about this. You need to spin up this service that GitLab provides called Docker in Docker, this DIND. And that'll allow you to build container, like Docker in Docker. You're building a Docker container from inside of Docker. So if you are able, we're overriding the image to use this Docker one, we're spinning up this service. And then we're using the script to just say, just build the container. And I think I kind of already just beat that in the ground, but that Docker image, there's a link here to show you that one that has the Docker tools that's on Docker Hub. And then that Docker and Docker service, there's documentation here. So that's what allows your CI runners to talk to the Docker daemon to create the spin up the Docker containers. So when I added this to that project, which it's already all there in the CI, that container build right here, when we run that, you can see Docker build -t MCPI dot, it's building that container now in CI. So this is how you can build the containers, but really you want to publish them, right? So take it one step further, in the build stage, you can build it, and then later, if all your tests go properly, you want to deploy it, you can go into your deploy stage. We have to do the same thing again, that image with Docker and have the Docker and Docker service running. We're going to use some more predefined GitLab CI variables, the CI registry user and the CI registry password and the CI registry. These are the container registry. They did the container registry, I think, before the package registry. So that's why this doesn't say container registry, but just so you know, these are all for that registry. And then what I'm doing is I'm building the container again, and then I'm giving it a tag. I like to use the git commit sometimes, so you know exactly what source code it came from. Then I'm also calling it latest. And then, so that's the one that I just built, and then I'm pushing that to this registry. And this is just kind of a nice one that you can reuse in all of your projects, because it doesn't have anything project specific really, except for this, MCPI here. This one that GitLab provides to push it to that registry. So, in this stage, what we can see where all that's getting run, we built the container, the tags are getting put on it, and now it's pushing that. And then this push refers to the repository, registry.gitlab.com, my new group, MCPI, user RC and README and such. And then it's showing up, not here in the package registry, but in the container registry. And you can see I actually have multiple ones. This was for a feature branch where these are the git commits, and there's the latest one. And then when I, merged it into main, there's a main one with the latest as well. So there, I think we already talked about some of the roles already. Thought it might be nice to say, owner and maintainer, developer, reporter, guest. Those are the kind of roles you can do. This is maybe a good reference to say, if you're the principal and investigator, the lead developer, these are the roles you'd probably have. If you're the RSE or a computational scientist or an operations engineer, probably more of a maintainer developer. Maybe you don't have to be the owner completely, but your junior devs, your students, your interns, maybe your junior postdocs, maybe you put them as developer, reporter, or guest, so they don't have so much, like the higher the role, the more damage they can do, so, onboard them slowly, give them some guardrails. And then maybe collaborators or experimental scientists or instrument scientists who just want to like open issues and tell you about defects, but don't want to touch your code. You can give them this reporter or guest access. I don't think we'll talk about this. This is just to say, here's an example of one of our projects where, we have lots of groups, some for infrastructure, training materials, some of the source repos, some of the more elaborate boards that we have, and some of the more elaborate CI pipelines. And then I actually have a project that we transferred from our instance over to GitHub to get more, to get it out there a bit more. And you can kind of see the difference in the nice groups that are over here and such. And now I had to go to a flatter structure, which I wasn't a big fan of. So yeah, we covered a lot. Really open to feedback. It's kind of the first time I've ever done this one. So, was there too much of anything, something I didn't cover, any complaints about CI not working, or if there's any more context, I'd like to try to add more like of the scientific software stuff into this. But, overall, thank you very, very much. Love to take questions and feedback. Of course, you can email me if you'd like, but also, jump on the USRC Slack on that channel that Lauren and Ian mentioned, and links to join. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Marshall. That was really good. I learned a lot about GitLab and everything. I'd like to remind everyone that the slides you already have the link to those. I'll paste that in the chat. Apologies if it goes to a particular slide. The recording will become available as soon as we make it available. And we've also set up a channel in the USRSC Slack for continued discussion and questions after the tutorial. Again, if you are not a member of USRSC and you'd like to become one, you can join by going to this link here in the chat. And since we have a few minutes, does anybody have any questions for Marshall? If you do, please type them in the chat and I will ask them. So Keith, since I saw you had your hand up and you were the first person, do you want to just unmute and ask your question while other people are populating the chat?
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
I had a question about forks. I didn't even know GitLab did forks. I thought they were a GitHub thing. Are they the same as they are in GitHub, or are they really different?
No, they're pretty much exactly, from my experience, exactly the same, because it's that really common fork it, make a change, and then I want to add, like a change to this repo. But where I've contributed to projects on both, yeah, they pretty much go exactly the same way.
Okay, because I always thought that was like the difference between a merge request and a pull request. In my mind, it was always a merge request was a GitLab thing, where it came from the same, it came from a branch within the same project, whereas a pull request is a GitHub thing coming from a branch of a fork.
Those pull request. I always get tripped up, especially when people are like PR versus MR and stuff. Right. But they're the exact same. They just, like they say, project, repository, merge request, pull request. Those are identical, and forks are the same across them. Yeah. The biggest differences I see is like some of like how the roles work are going to be a little bit different in GitHub, how they did it, because it's like their permissions and stuff. I mean, the nesting is really different, that they do, and like how you can go down groups. And I really like that. Some people hate it, but I don't like that flat. If I want to put like infrastructure repos together, a couple different services and stuff, but those are the biggest differences that I've noticed. But yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So things are jumping all over the place. Let's see, so Carlos wants to know if an organization is already working on GitHub, is there a strong argument for moving to GitLab?
Oh, yeah, if you're already on GitHub and you're going great, go for it. You know what I mean? And that's how I operated previously and such. Yeah, I don't think there is, unless you just like it. Maybe mirror them. Like I like to do that, is like, hey, have it on both, and then whichever one you prefer, you can be like that source one and then mirror it over to the other your repos that you want to do. That's possible, and I didn't go over that, but if you're curious about that, we've done that with, or there's projects out there that do that a lot. But really, it's personal preference. Like, which feature sets do you like the best? Which ones are your team more familiar with? If you're mature and on that platform, stay with that platform.
Thank you. Chelsea would like to know, for CI/CD pipelines, are there best practices for cleaning up old pipelines or failed pipelines? Any reason to keep them outside of troubleshooting?
Oh, I keep them. Yeah, I never delete them. I let them go. I think there's an they'll auto delete pipelines, like GitLab will, just for the sake of cleaning them up. There is one where you can go in there and delete them if you've leaked a secret. That's happened sometimes, and even maybe intentionally, if you were trying to debug, like, hey, why can't I talk to this? This API token's not working. Is it the right token? You do want to be able to go in there and you can delete them. But for the most part, you don't need to. It's great to have that history. Doesn't matter if they're failing. Hey, that's great. Yeah, and if you're doing like test-driven development and you're committing and letting CI take it, like you'll see failures, and that's a good thing in a sense. So yeah, don't be afraid of red pipelines unless they're on like the main branch, and then everybody's going to get mad at you. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a question that was answered already, but I think others might have a similar question. So Diego asked if there are any best practices on how to deal with huge files, for example, data that shouldn't go into the repo, but you still want to link to.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, just with any Git platform, doesn't matter, GitLab, Tim, right? Don't put large files in Git, like especially not binary and such like that. But yeah, there is, if you need, like, I've had it where I have like large test file, or like test files is a big one. Sometimes when I start off small, I might put them in there if they're not crazy huge, but as they grow, one of the first tools I've pulled out is the Git LFS, and GitLab has that, and GitHub too. So that's a tool to use to put those large files in there, and then you only like pull them when you're needed and stuff. If you get really, really big, I think Tim was mentioning like S3 and stuff. Like if it's huge, like we've done it to where we have a cloud and we'll have like these S3 buckets or a file system that we can like attach to the runner, to get those files that everybody needs to. But that's kind of stepping up. I would start with Git LFS. But yeah, first off, just don't put like binaries or tarballs or stuff in there if you can't help it.
Yeah, so a somewhat related question. Do you recommend checking in container images to GitLab? How about other types of large binary files, large being maybe over 100 megabytes?
Oh, okay, so maybe I should clarify something. When we were pushing to the package registry and the container registry, that's not going into version control. That's why GitLab, I had a slide on this, so maybe I should have kept it in there. GitLab is way more than just version control. All these issues that we're looking at, these registries that you're using, and modules you can sort, those are outside of the version control. Those are just the project management / DevOps type tools. And so, yeah, to get back to the actual question, the container images that I was pushing and showing, those aren't under version control. You're just storing them, and you can delete them, but like you're not modifying them and keeping up with the changes on them. I personally, I create an artifact for every single build that I do, even on the feature branches. Just it helps when you want to debug some work and such. So I think that I like to put a bunch of stuff in the container registry, and it's not going to affect you how we're talking about like Git LFS for like, things that are going into like your Git pushing, and keeping them in Git, the command line tool, and keeping up with their changes. So I hope that answers that question. We're not putting a container image into the version control. We're putting the Docker file, which can be used to create the artifact, and then push it to a proper store there. Sorry if I beat a dead horse. Yeah.
No, I think it's important. So next question, is there preferred or recommended Git workflow for small groups of developers rather than big open source / free software ones? For example, Git flow, GitHub flow, etc.
That's a great question. Well, you're not going to like it. It depends. Yeah. Sorry, everybody hates that question. But I think it's not even sometimes, you know, because I worked on like different ones, it'll come down to what you're producing a little bit more. And why do I say that? If you're doing a library and stuff, the Git flow, it's actually pretty good. And it's like kind of more disciplined to do it, even if you have just like 2 people. When, you know, getting into that kata, kind of like doing it all the time. You know, I even do, you know, I don't push domain a lot, and I do merge requests, even if I'm the only developer, you know, do a review just to make sure I keep, you know, I don't do that a lot. So I like that for libraries and such, and, you know, shrink what you need to if it's really holding you back, you know, hey, cut off, like, I don't have to do a specific way to do hot fixes. You know, if I have feature branches and one main branch or a next and a main, or, you know, like that, modify it as you need to, kind of iterate on it. But I will say, like, I like to get away from that. And if you're doing services, if you're deploying a web service and such, and you're doing that, I honestly don't do all that Git flow hotfix stuff. No, I just kind of have that rolling release idea of like a next branch that gets deployed and a main branch that gets deployed. And then if you need to add more in there, you can. But like, you want it just deployed as soon as possible and to launch integration testing or end-to-end testing, you know, in that integration environment and test that out. You know, if you can even spin those environments up for like feature branches and then tear them down and such, like with, you know, tools like Kubernetes or other things. And, you know, the main one is like your production. So I say it's not so much team size dependent on what type of deployment you have at the end. What's your operations?
Excellent. Thank you so much. Let's see.
And that's my opinion. Sorry, yeah, it could be completely wrong.
I just started looking into this myself, trying to put together something to explain to other people what they are. And I found that you can't Google Git workflow because you get GitHub actions. And
yeah,
it's a very difficult thing to search.
Yeah. There's I'm going to bring up John Hetrick again. He's a member in our group who's had a lot of experience, and we actually went back and forth a lot on talking about this and coming up with like, oh, which one should we use? And so like, it really mattered on our team, you know, and feel free to change it as you go if you need to modify it. So it's more like that agile style progress. So like, find what works for you. But yeah, researching it, yeah, that doesn't help that part. But be flexible and, you know, modify it as needed.
Yeah. Any other questions from Marshall? We have 3 minutes left. Probably enough time for one more question.
If not, I might, one thing we are using the GitLab Docker registry. You can use that one. You could also push to Docker Hub if you want and such. For some reasons, if you don't like, both are interchangeable, but you would have to like log into the container registry of GitLab versus like the normal Docker login and stuff. So you can push to both if you want. But if you want to keep some containers off of Docker Hub and, you know, maybe have it more private, you can do that. So that's like, you know, that type of idea. If you have a private project, the GitLab one container registry is really useful. But if you're completely open source, Docker Hub is going to get it to more people. So unless they keep cutting back on their service, then we can't do anything on Docker Hub.
Oh, thank you, John. John Hetrick just said in the chat to look up Git branching strategies instead of workflows. So that'll be helpful for me, and I'm sure others here. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Marshall. It was wonderful having you here. And I think we all learned a lot about GitLab. And yeah, thank you everyone who came.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Ian, and thank you all the TAs. And yeah.
Yes, special shout out to the TAs answering questions in the chat. That was very helpful to everyone.